In this video, I'll be comparing scientific studies to the events around the miracle attributed to Venerable Fulton Sheen. I will not be going into the story itself, just the scientific aspects of that story. If you want to learn more about the story, I suggest reading the book by the mother Bonnie or watching her interview with Patrick Coffin. Both will have the links in the description. The next thing I want to say is I'm not here to prove a miracle with science. That's outside the realm of science. Science only looks at natural claims, not supernatural claims. What I'm here just to show how considerably outside the norm the events of the miracle are. In addition to that, I'm showing the extraordinary nature of the events compared to studies at the time of the event as well as now. So how has science progressed since the events of the miracle, which was in 2010? The next thing I want to do is justify my credibility. So I'm a statistician. My name is Ryan Joseph. I have a master's degree in statistics. In my grad school, I focused on clinical trials and epidemiology, and I was trained to read, write, and examine research papers. And that's exactly what I'm going to do with the events of this miracle.
Before we get into the studies, let's talk about the miracle. It happened in 2010 when a full-term baby was born at home with a documented APGAR score of 0 at the beginning and throughout the ordeal. He was given CPR for the first 20 minutes by the midwives. After the CPR, ambulance came, and for the next 24 minutes, he was hooked up to a heart monitor, given continuous chest compressions, and 2 doses of epinephrine. The last 17 minutes, he was in the NICU, where he was given intubation, chest compressions, and sonogram observations. He was about to be pronounced dead when his heart came back to life at 148 beats per minute. The blood draw showed he had a pH level of 6.7, which means he had acidosis and that his body was indeed shutting down. The average human has a pH level of 7.3 to 7.4, and anything below 6.8 is considered fatal. The EEG showed he had a highly abnormal brain, and the MRI showed that he had injury to the brain due to deprived oxygen. And throughout all of this, keep in mind that this kid is still alive, that this kid is healthy, and that he does not have any abnormal effects from this ordeal. A 7-person panel of medical experts concluded that they could not find a scientific explanation for the survival and condition of the child. These experts were selected on their qualifications and not on their religious affiliation. After they reported their findings to the Vatican started looking at the other events around the science to eventually conclude in 2019 by Pope Francis that this was a miracle attributed to Venerable Fulton Sheen. I will not be covering all the different aspects here, but I will be covering the main indicator, which is the APGAR score of 0 throughout the 61 minutes, and comparing that to studies. Stillbirths happen at about 1 out of 160 pregnancies, and full terms happen significantly less. An APGAR score is a score that newborns are given to gauge how healthy they are. 7 to 10 is considered healthy by this table, and a 0 is a parent's worst nightmare. Lastly, before going into the studies, I want to let you know that as of right now, and at the time of the miracle in 2010, 10 minutes is the recommended call time when the APGAR score is at 0. That means a doctor can make a call to stop trying to revive or continue. Some of the studies I will be going over have the expressed purpose of being done to suggest a longer call time. The first study I want to go over is called the Long-Term Outcome in Surviving Infants with APGAR score of 0 at 10 minutes, a systemic review of the literature in a hospital-based cohort. So this study was published in May 2007 in Oxford, United Kingdom. It's a prospective cohort meta-analysis study. This means that they have their own data, but are also looking at other studies and combining everything together. The data ranges from 1991 to 2004 with 2 designations, the meta-analysis and the prospective cohort. First I'll go over is the meta-analysis. In the meta-analysis, they found 94 resuscitations. 78 died, 10 had severe disability, 2 had moderate disability, and 1 had mild disability. 3 could not be reached in follow-up, but based on reports were assumed severely disabled. This is because this is a volunteer study. A parent can pull their child from the study at any time for any reason. And in a lot of cases, it may be too hard for a parent, and so they pull the child out because of that, and that seems to have been the case here. The next is the prospective cohort. There was 12 resuscitations, 3 had died. Of the 9 that had lived, 8 of them had severe disability, and 1 had moderate disability. In 2007, this study shows that there's a very grim outlook for babies when it comes to an APGAR score of 0 at 10 minutes, let alone 61. The second study is called Length of Resuscitation for Severely Depressed Newborns. This study was published in June 2019 in St. Louis. It involved 4 hospitals. It was a retrospective cohort study and looked at the dates between 2010 and 2017 with documentations for a 10-minute APGAR score of 0 or 1. They showed that they had 87 babies with an APGAR score of 0 or 1 at 10 minutes. 15 achieved return of spontaneous circulation, which means that their blood was flowing on their own. 10 died, with 8 of them dying within 24 hours. 5 survived discharge, with 2 having moderate to severe disabilities and 3 having little to no disabilities. This study also shows that it is not likely for babies to wake up between 10 and 20 minutes with an APGAR score of 0 or 1. They're likely to have a severe disability or die. The last study is called Neonates with a 10-minute APGAR score of 0, Outcomes by Gestational Age. This study was published in March 2019 in Canada. It was a retrospective cohort study that looked at the years 2010 to 2016. This study had several different designations for gestational age, but I will be focusing on full-term babies at 36 or more weeks. Furthermore, there were 2 designations for the different types of treatment. There was the normal treatment, and then there was a therapeutic hypothermia treatment. The normal treatment had 19 babies, 8 of which survived, 1 with no brain damage. For the therapeutic hypothermia treatment, there was 101 babies, 65 survived, with 27 with no brain injury. So this study shows that the therapeutic hypothermia technique may be helpful in reviving babies with an APGAR score of 0 at 10 minutes, but it was not applied to the case in the miracle. I wanted to show this because we're becoming more aware of the different types of techniques that we can use to help resuscitate babies. And I want to make the distinction and make this video as robust as possible in terms of the comparisons, that when it comes to the miracle that was described, that it is still considerably outside the norm because it was with the normal treatment. It was not with a therapeutic hypothermia treatment. I chose studies that looked at 10 to 20 minutes for resuscitation times because those are studies that are going to be the closest to what we were looking at, which was 60 minutes. This is because as you increase the time between 0 and 10 minutes with an APGAR score of 0, the rate of death or severe disability goes up. So if I had shown you studies where it looked at 1 minute and it looked at 5 minutes and it looked at 10 minutes, you would see that there would be an increase in the rate of death or the rate of severe disability. And I didn't want to emphasize on the times that are pretty well known, pretty well established, which is 1 and 5 minutes. I wanted to emphasize on the more extreme cases because that's what we were looking for. We were looking at 10-minute cases, we were looking at 20-minute cases because those are the closest types of studies in regards to the Fulton Sheen miracle, where it was at 61 minutes. Unfortunately, there simply are not a lot of studies that are there to begin with. Neonatal studies like this are hard because of the dynamic of what you are studying, and controlling for certain variables may be ethically impossible or impractical. The focus of the neonatal team is the mother and the baby. Many things may happen that disqualifies them from studies that aren't cohort or case studies. In light of this, what is gleaned from these studies is that the farther from the birth the child is with an APGAR score of 0, the more likely they are to die or have a severe disability. And in regards to the evidence, last thing I want to go over are the outliers I found. Again, given the dynamic of stillbirths and the lack of public documentation, I was only able to find 2 outliers. Now, when I say outliers, I mean significantly outside 20 minutes of resuscitation. The first one was in 2000. There was a girl that was born and had an APGAR score of 0 for 65 minutes. It was very similar to the events of the Fulton Sheen miracle. After resuscitation ceased, the baby was baptized, and then she woke up. She is currently healthy and does not suffer any mental disability because of the event. The second was in 2011, where a child had an APGAR score of 0 for 40 minutes and woke up. The child currently has cerebral palsy. The main focus of this video is to really show you that when it comes to these tests, when it comes to these studies, when the 7-person panel analyzed these, you can kind of get a glimmer of why they came to the conclusion that they did. Because what happened was very abnormal. It was considerably outside the norm and not what you would expect to happen whatsoever.
When it comes to miracles and science developing, there are things that happen where the miracles can be replicated by science by natural means. Now, the question comes, did the miracle actually happen when the miracle happened, say like 40, 50, 1,000 years ago? Well, objectively speaking, you have to say it's still a possibility, especially if the natural means weren't around for that to happen. But I'll give you an example of it happening. Our Lady of Guadalupe, the image itself, is considered a miracle. It happened when Juan Diego let go of his cloak with all the flowers he had gathered, and the image just appeared. What's interesting is the fact that in each one of the eyes, there are 13 people, suspected to be the people in the room. What's more interesting is that you can only see them after the image has been magnified 2,500 times the natural eyesight of a human being. What does that mean? It means that 500 years ago, someone could not have made this image on the cloak. Now, I'm not saying that the miracle didn't happen. What I'm saying is, even though we can replicate that image today, it does not mean that it was done 500 years ago, because they simply didn't have the technology to even see what they were doing.
I hope this has been helpful in understanding how serious the Catholic Church takes miracles, and that we don't just slap that term on anything because someone prayed somewhere. Lastly, if you are Catholic, please contact your local bishop and the Bishop of Peoria, asking for an update of his beatification. On December 2nd of 2019, we were given a delay for his beatification because of some concerns of members of the USCCB. At the time of this recording, nothing has come from those concerns, and the delay is currently indefinite. As the man himself once said, "Your mission is to see that your priests act like priests, your bishops act like bishops, and your religious act like religious." Thank you for watching, and if you have any suggestions, please leave them down below. I'd love to do more of this. Have a great day.